Your subconscious loves to stay consistent with your self-concept. It wants to make you right. So if you believe that you're someone who always plays it safe, you'll avoid risks, even the ones that could help you grow. I had a very, very vivid picture of the life I wanted, but I subconsciously linked success with struggle. Consciously, I knew that wasn't necessarily the case, but for me, it equaled struggle, it equaled time, and it equaled years of grinding behind the scenes before I'd be allowed to receive what I wanted. Even though I consciously knew that things can absolutely happen fast, I've seen it happen for others. My identity was still so wired for delay. I'm your host, Lauren, and together let's explore what it really means to embrace authenticity in a world that often values conformity. If you've ever felt the pull to challenge the status quo or deepen your connection to self, you're in the right place. Welcome back to another episode of Not So Status Quo. I am so glad that you are here and that you decided to press play on this episode because I truly believe that what we will discuss today is so frequently overlooked when it comes to self-development and mindset work, but it is often the biggest game changer. And the game changer is self-concept work. I was actually planning on talking about a different topic right now, but after having some interesting conversations behind the scenes in the DMs lately, I realized how many of us are still operating from a self image, a self concept, an identity that just doesn't fit. And in a lot of cases, it actually never has. But somewhere along the way, we adopted beliefs about ourselves that stuck, which have gone on to infiltrate how we see ourselves, how we see others, and how we see the world around us in every single moment, in every single day. A few days ago, I was thinking about just how many decisions we make purely because they feel familiar, not because they actually feel aligned for us and where we actually want to get to. And it hit me how many of those choices that we make on autopilot are based on who we used to be, not who we are now or not who we want to become. Have you ever experienced driving home at the end of a long day and you've left your destination and then you've arrived home and you can barely even remember the drive home? I've done this so many times, it's actually quite scary. It's like you're so zoned out or distracted by your thoughts that your body just takes over, you're on autopilot, and your body just basically got you to your destination. Or, now this is going to be a very specific example. So if you have ever experienced this too, please let me know. Let's say that you have moved house and you need to take a different exit off the freeway to get to your new house, but your mind is deep in thought. So you're running on autopilot and you end up missing your exit and taking the one that you would have to your old house. Now, surely that can't just be me. So let me know in the comments if you have ever done anything similar. I do fear, though, that we often operate like this in many aspects of our lives. We just keep going with the flow, but are we really checking in to see where the flow is flowing? Like, where is it going? Is it going in a direction that we actually want to go in? And the problem with this is when you are operating on autopilot, you are not consciously choosing your thoughts, your actions, or your identity. You are literally running off old programming, and that programming is typically your self concept. Now, the term self concept might be new to you and it might sound a little bit vague. You are not alone in thinking that. So that we are definitely on the same page, your self concept is the internal story you believe about who you are, what you are capable of, and what you are worthy of receiving. You've likely been operating from these internal narratives and stories since childhood. And when you don't review and update these beliefs about yourself, you will likely just keep following them, following these narratives without any questions. And when we're trying to evolve and upgrade, this is obviously very problematic. For example, let's say that you want to be more financially abundant, But your self concept believes, I've never been good with money. If this is the case, you will self sabotage. In some way, you will self sabotage abundance from finding you or sticking around until you actually pause and bring awareness to it and intentionally choose a new identity. You'll keep looping around the same patterns. And you'll end up probably calling that your personality or just who you are. Now, right now, some misaligned beliefs may have popped into your mind because you are consciously aware of how you view your capabilities and how you view yourself. But it's often the subconscious, hidden beliefs that are the ones that hold us back the most because we don't even realize they are there. I'm going to share quite openly here. I have always believed that I'm quite a confident person, confident in my ability to do most things to a high standard, and in my ability to learn how to do new things and acquire new knowledge. Consciously, I do believe I am a good problem solver, that I can make money through business, that I am quite resilient, that I have great skills and great strengths. And that all lends me to being a good entrepreneur or business owner. And this should lead me to having a thriving, successful business. But, and yes, there's a but, I realized that I had some competing subconscious beliefs. It turns out I had been carrying narratives around about myself that had been significantly holding me back from stepping into my full potential. And arguably, they are still, like, to a certain extent, they're still there. The subconscious beliefs and narratives that I was holding was that success takes a long time for me, that I have to work incredibly hard, that I have to do that hard work over a long period of time with little reward. But this was just applicable to me, not other people, right? Because consciously, I know that success and abundance doesn't equal hard, long work. It absolutely can, but it doesn't have to. But for me, I believed it did. Now, if you and I ever get the opportunity to work together, I would love, 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 love to run you through some really cool exercises on self concept. They it's seriously such game changing work. I will, of course, share some exercises in this episode, as I always do, but some exercises are best when you have a support person to guide you through them and debrief afterwards. But don't fret, I will absolutely share some in this episode. Anyway, after realizing these were the stories that I held about myself, I truly, really didn't want to believe that this was how I had been viewing myself for all these years. Like, how had these been slipping past? I refused to believe it. But the reality were, these were the beliefs that had been seriously holding me back. Then I started to question, where did these beliefs come from? Because this is exactly what I get my clients to do. When you shine a light on these stories and beliefs, you start to disempower them. But then it's really important to understand them more. Like, where did they come from? Before we dive in further, I know this might not be something that you have thought about, but it would make a huge difference if you could follow, like, rate, subscribe. Thank you so much for your support. It truly does mean so much. All right, let's start at the beginning somewhat again, because self concept as a term can feel a little clinical, a little vague until you actually feel how it is shaping your life. So, to recap, at its simplest, self concept is the internal story you believe about who you are, what you are capable of, and what you're worthy of receiving. So, I'm capable of this, or I'm not worthy of that kind of vibe. And your self concept is like a set of plans for your identity, which is the lens through which you see yourself, and by extension, how you show up in the world. So, for example, an identity could be I'm a sister or I'm a basketball player. Self concept and your identity, they are really closely intertwined. And most of the time, these beliefs are running very, very discreetly in the background, often unchecked and unnoticed. We do form our self concept over time, usually without realizing it, like we've discussed. And it often starts in childhood. It's often shaped by things that you were told, like you're shy, you're not academic, You're so dramatic, as well as what we observe. So, how were your parents or your caregivers? How did they talk about themselves? How did they respond to you? All of these things go into shaping our self concept and our identity. And through repetition and comparison and emotional experiences and teeny, teeny, tiny micro moments that felt like evidence about who we are, eventually that collection of beliefs becomes internalized as fact, even if they are no longer true or if they were even never true to begin with. So, what does this look like in action? It's believing things like, I'm not the kind of person who can. I've always been this way. That kind of success isn't for people like me. And here's the great, but also not so great thing, depending on where you're at. Your subconscious loves to stay consistent with your self concept. It wants to make you right. So if you believe that you're someone who always plays it safe, you'll avoid risks, even the ones that could help you grow. If you believe you're someone who struggles with money, you'll find ways to confirm that, even without realizing it. And if you believe deep down that you are not really lovable, that you are not worthy, that you are not capable, guess what patterns will keep repeating? And the thing that trips up a lot of people and makes it harder for them to realize what's holding them back, just like in my personal example, is that you can consciously believe something is true, like money can be easy to make, or I deserve a healthy relationship. But if your subconscious self concept doesn't agree and thinks this rule doesn't apply to you, you'll keep sabotaging and deflecting and struggling to receive and welcome it in. That's what I call a belief mismatch. When your logical mind is on board, but your identity and your nervous system are still running on an old story underneath. Self concept almost becomes the glass ceiling that determines how far you actually allow yourself to go in life, in relationships, in career, in your self worth, in everything. But the great news is it's not an actual fixed thing. You absolutely can change it. You're not locked into it. You absolutely can rewrite your self concept. And when you do, your external world will start to reflect those new beliefs. They will reflect it back to you, not the old programming. So now we know what self concept actually is. Let's talk about how it shows up in your actual day to day life. Now, I want you to keep in mind that you don't just experience the world as it is, you experience it as you believe yourself to be. Your self concept will inform all the decisions that you make, the opportunities that you say yes or no to, the relationships you entertain, the goals you allow yourself to dream about, or the ones that you completely dismiss. And even how much love and success and money and freedom that you believe you're allowed to have. So let's go over a few examples, and I would love to know how many of these you can identify with. Also, you might hear the start of these and think, no, this absolutely doesn't apply to me. But if the behaviors that I go on to list are things that you do, that if they are familiar, it might be time to do a self concept evaluation. All right, so the first one, let's say that your self concept is that, let's do the money thing. I'm not good with money, or money is hard to make. You might avoid looking at your bank account. You might undercharge for your services. You might self sabotage when things start going well. Or you might subconsciously continuously seek proof that making money is always going to be hard. So, does any of that resonate? The second one is, let's say that your self concept is that you are not confident enough to lead or start a new business or start something, some project that you really want to do. You might avoid putting yourself forward for promotions or for opportunities. You might stay quiet when you have something valuable to say or something to add. You might downplay your strengths. You might be waiting to be ready enough, educated enough. Is any of this familiar to you? Let's do another one. Maybe your self concept is something like, I always get left behind, or I'm not desirable enough. You might then cling on to relationships that aren't good for you. You might settle for less than what you deserve. You might push love away because it doesn't actually feel safe within your nervous system. And remember what we said earlier, your subconscious, it wants to be right. It loves familiarity. So even if a belief is limiting to you, your brain will keep recreating situations that confirm it over and over again until you update the story. And the thing is, you have multiple beliefs and stories that are running beneath the surface that you are holding onto for the various aspects of your life. Like, this is just for money, or this is just for love. But there are scripts and narratives for every area of your life. And the chances are a lot of these are going to be outdated and misaligned with who you are truly and where you truly want to get to. So I need to emphasize, you can't create a new life that aligns with your highest potential, with your wildest and juiciest dreams and goals, with the self concept of your old one. Now, don't get me wrong, you absolutely can create a life that is fine and you can achieve things from outdated scripts. You've been doing it your whole life. But if you truly want to get to where you desire to be, to feel the most abundant, fulfilled, and happy, you are going to have to address your self concept. You are going to have to check in and see what is aligning and what doesn't. Trying to build a dream life from an outdated identity is like trying to run the latest software on a phone from 2005, and it's going to glitch and it's going to lag and eventually it's going to break down because it can't support the capability of the software. And this is often why things feel so frustrating and stagnant. You might be taking so much action and really, really, really trying, but it's like you're dragging a belief system behind you that doesn't support where you're going. And when your self concept and identity doesn't match your desire, there is a block, there's a gap, there's a disconnect. I know you know what I'm talking about. That's why shifting your self concept isn't about forcing anything. It's about realigning with who you are and with what you actually truly desire and want. Because the version of you who already has what you want believes differently. She is different. And the more you start thinking and feeling and acting from her perspective, the more your life starts to change and it changes to be in alignment with what you desire. We've spoken about energetics in some of the previous solo episodes, so definitely go check those out if you haven't done so already. Now that you understand how deeply your self concept shapes your reality, I really want to bring this to life a little bit more with a few more examples from my own life, my own journey, because honestly, this work has changed everything for me and it changes everything for my clients. And if you're in a season where you feel stuck and confused or like you're doing everything right, but nothing is actually landing, I want you to know that I have so been there. This frustrated feeling. I've said this in previous episodes. I know this feeling intimately and I wish I didn't. I'd say since my late 20s, I've had a very clear vision of what my future would look like, what it would feel like, the kinds of freedoms that I'd have, the impact that I'd make. But that didn't mean that I was immune to self concept blocks. And I had multiple that I didn't realize I had. In fact, what held me back wasn't a lack of belief in my destination or my abilities. It was the internal story I held about the path. Feeling frustrated at my lack of progress when all I seemed to do was hustle was honestly so common for me. And it took me years to realize that I had these beliefs that were seriously shaping my decisions, my energy, which is super important, and obviously my reality. So let me give you a few more of these examples and the shifts that I realized that I actually needed to make. So the first self concept shift was me going from success takes a long time to things can happen quickly for me. And this one ran really deep. I had a very vivid picture of the life I wanted, but I subconsciously linked success with struggle. Consciously, I knew that wasn't necessarily the case, but for me, it equaled struggle, it equaled time, and it equaled years of grinding behind the scenes before I'd be allowed to receive what I wanted. Even though I consciously knew that things can absolutely happen fast, I've seen it happen for others. My identity was still so wired for delay. So I'd overthink. I'd stretch out timelines. I'd feel urgency, but also a huge resistance because part of me believes success had to take a long time or I wasn't ready for it yet. And when you believe that success is far away, you unconsciously delay it because your energy isn't in receiving mode, it's in preparing mode. You almost get comfortable in this in between because it feels familiar, even though you can resent it. And this is how I felt. The shift for me started when I asked, what if success doesn't actually take time? What if it just comes down to alignment? And when I started to truly embody that, like truly own that quantum shifts are possible, that things can click quickly when you're clear and when you're congruent with who you are becoming, I seriously started collapsing timelines in real life, not just in theory. The second really big one for me was going from money is hard to make to money flows to me through alignment. And quite honestly, money, yeah, it was a big one for me, like not in a surface level kind of way, but in a seriously subtle emotional undercurrent I didn't even realize was there. I believed money would require sacrifice, time, energy, emotional labor. I felt guilt about spending money sometimes, like if I wasn't careful, the bank account would run dry. And I avoided looking at my bank account, not because I was irresponsible with money. I've never been irresponsible with money, but because I didn't feel safe with money. Like if I spent it, I was worried it wouldn't be replenished. I'd seen people in my family build businesses multiple times and then lose it all. And consciously, I really didn't think this affected me. And honestly, like, how could it not? I realized that there was a disconnect between my conscious beliefs around money for others versus what they were for me, what was even available for me. So I had to do a lot of internal work to really shift this. To recognize that those beliefs weren't facts. They were just inherited stories and past experiences that my nervous system had actually just internalized. The new self concept that I've been building is, and I say it's still happening now, is that money flows to me when I'm in alignment. Earning doesn't have to be exhausting, and receiving gets to feel safe. And the more I've anchored into that, the more evidence I've seen that this new truth can be so real for me. It is absolutely real for me. Okay, I'll give you one more. And this one was a super hidden and really quiet one, but arguably maybe even the most powerful. For a long time, I thought of myself as someone who would do big things one day in the future, even though I really wanted it now. But I realized that even that phrasing of saying one day was actually reinforcing a subtle separation between myself and my desires. It kept my desires at a distance and it kept me in the identity of someone who was on the way rather than already embodying who I needed to be to call it into my now, into my present. That shift from future tense to present embodiment has been a game changer. But I do still catch myself saying things like this. So I always have to stop and correct that. Because the thing is, when you stop thinking of your dream life as something that you'll earn later or you'll live later and start owning that it's available for you now, everything will energetically, it just has to start to move. These shifts didn't happen overnight for me. Like they took awareness, they took unlearning, they took emotional regulation and consistent reinforcement of my new identity. And like I said, like I continue to work on this on a daily basis and it will become my new normal. But the turning point has always been when I've actually just identified a resistance, like why I'm not actually achieving the goal. And then I've asked myself, what beliefs do I hold about myself in relation to this? Then asking myself, is this belief actually mine? Or is it something that I've unconsciously inherited or I've absorbed from somebody else? Because you're not stuck, like you're not broken. You're just operating from a self concept that may no longer reflect who you are or where you're going. And the moment you start to choose differently, That's when you start building a life that reflects who you truly are. Let's talk about the signs, like the real life cues that your self concept might be outdated or misaligned, or it's simply just not serving where you want to get to. Because you might think you've outgrown an old identity, but unless you've done the deep internal work to actually release it and embody something new, it is still probably driving the show, whether you like it or not. So, here are some signs that you might still be living from an outdated version of you, who you believe yourself to be, even if it's super subtle. And let me know if any of these resonate. Man, I've asked you to let me know a few things. You'll have to comment and let me know what stood out to you this episode. Okay, the first one is you've outgrown your current reality, but you feel stuck repeating the same patterns. You might know that there's more available to you. You feel the pull towards a bigger life, a different version of you. But for some reason, the same types of experiences and relationships, opportunities, they just keep showing up. And it feels like you are stuck on a loop. Maybe you're feeling like that hamster on that hamster wheel. You know where you want to get to, but you're just in the same position going round and round. That is often the sign that your identity hasn't quite caught up with your visions just yet. The second thing is that you keep setting goals, but you don't follow through, or maybe you feel disconnected from them after a short period of time. So, this could involve that. Like you writing down your visions and your goals. You might make a Pinterest board, a vision board. You're feeling super excited, but then maybe that excitement fizzles out. And deep down, a voice might be saying, who are you to want that? Or that's not realistic for someone like you. If you don't see yourself as someone who gets to have that life, you'll struggle to stay connected to the process and to that goal, no matter how badly you want it. Okay, the third one is that you sabotage progress even when things are finally going well. Now, there's a few reasons why this happens, but it's important to recognize if this is happening. Have you ever noticed how when things start to align, you then ghost an opportunity, or you're delaying a launch, or you're picking a fight, or you're talking yourself out of it? That's not because you're lazy or flaky. It's often your self concept pulling you back towards what actually feels familiar. In these cases, believing something like I'm someone who struggles often will feel safer than the unknown of success, even if it's not what you actually want. And a fear of success actually affects women far, far more than they realize. Now, the fourth sign is that you feel resistance around being seen, heard, or fully expressed. This one can be very obvious, or it can be a little bit more subtle. Maybe you downplay your wins, you're delaying posting your content, or avoiding sharing your opinions. Maybe you say you want more visibility, but when it's offered to you, you shrink and you downplay yourself. That's often a sign that your self concept is still tied to people pleasing or perfectionism or a fear of being too much. The fifth sign is that you're doing all the right things, but nothing is actually landing. Maybe you're doing what I did. You're journaling, you're meditating, you're doing the affirmations, maybe you've hired a coach, maybe you're doing a course, but something still feels off. This is one of the clearest signs that your subconscious identity isn't quite on board yet. You don't manifest what you say you want, you manifest what you believe you are. I went over this in the last episode. I am going to do a quick plug here because I've seen so many women who want to create their dream life and they jump straight into the manifestation work and the vision boards. And that's the exciting, like glossy, shiny part of it. But this is literally like throwing ingredients for a cake into a pan and into the oven and taking it out after a minute and expecting it to be cooked. Like, it just won't be. No matter how fancy or expensive that oven is, there are steps that need to come beforehand. You need to mix it, you need to pour it, you need to measure it, you need to cook it if you truly, truly want the desired outcome. I believe there is such a big gap here in this self development work. So I have created what I think is a game changing but simple and easy to navigate kit that is focused on rewiring your mindset, your self concept, your subconscious beliefs, and it will ultimately help you lay the foundations and support all of your goal setting and your manifestation work. It is called the Mindset Upgrade Kit, and you can learn more about it in the link below or via the link in bio on the Status Align Instagram page. And depending on when you're listening to this, it is less than $50, like 50 Australian dollars. And let's face it, the economy is really bad in Australia right now. The Australian dollar is weak. So if you are outside of Australia, it is going to be even more affordable. Anyway, if any of the examples sound familiar, it is not a reason to panic or to spiral. I want you to think of this as a moment for clarity and awareness, because once you see the pattern, you can choose to shift it. And this work isn't about fixing yourself, it's about remembering who you really are underneath the conditioning, underneath society's expectations, your self doubt, and the old labels that really just don't belong to you. So let's walk through how to start actually doing that. Shifting, changing, and upgrading your self concept and identity isn't about pretending to be someone that you're not. Like, please don't see it like that. It isn't about performing or faking that you're confident or saying affirmations that you don't believe. Like, it's just not about that. It's about coming into alignment with who you really are at your core. And that's outside of what the world is telling you to be and with what you actually truly want and deeply desire for your life. So, let's discuss some of the steps that can help you start to rewire your self concept so you can break free from the stagnation and that frustration. Okay, so the first one, you're probably already going to guess it because I've mentioned it a few times already. It's awareness. It's starting to notice the self concept and the identity that you're currently operating from. And this will always, always be the first step. To do this, you will need to take a moment to honestly reflect because there's often deeply held beliefs that won't come straight to your mind. You can do this by noticing and asking yourself, what stories are you telling yourself on repeat? What phrases come out of your mouth when you talk about yourself or a particular goal that you're working towards? What things do you avoid because you don't see yourself as that kind of person? What patterns do you keep recreating in relationships, in your work environment, when it comes to money, when it comes to your health? So, what are those patterns? I think you'd actually be quite amazed at how much your language and your habits reveal about your self concept, often without you even realizing it. Now that you are aware, it'll be really interesting to see what you pick up. Also, observe what compliments that you give others that you feel isn't true for you. Now, I'm going to call out one of my gorgeous, gorgeous, like seriously gorgeous teammates, my basketball teammates, because she gave me a compliment a few weeks ago after listening to an episode. And she was essentially saying something like, I wish I could speak the way you do, but I can't. That right there is showing an aspect of her self concept. And I called it out. She believes she's not good with words. So, therefore, this is the belief she will be carrying through each day. It's just unavoidable. This is how she sees herself. Some other examples could include things like I'm not tech savvy. I always get anxious in situations like that. I've never been good with money. I'm just not the type of person who fill in the blank. And these aren't facts, right? They're scripts, they're stories, they're narratives, and all of these can absolutely be rewritten. So the second step revolves around clarifying. Who is the version of you that you are actually now ready to become? Because once you see your current script in the last exercise, when you look at your current beliefs, you can start to create new ones that actually do align with where you're trying to get to. Because once you see your current scripts, your current beliefs, you can start to create new ones that actually align with where you actually want to go. So you can ask yourself, who is the version of me who already lives the life that I want? What does she believe about herself? How does she speak? How does she move? How does she lead? How does she make decisions? What does she no longer tolerate? Again, this isn't about becoming someone else. It's about accessing the real you, the one that's already within you, beneath the outdated programming. It might be helpful to think less about creating a new identity and more like you're returning to the truest, most authentic version of yourself. All right, the third step is all about embodiment, starting to show up as that version of you now, especially in very small, consistent ways. This is absolutely not the time to wait until your external reality shifts in order to start living from a new identity. It's definitely, I can tell you, it's definitely not a chicken or the egg situation. You must begin living from that version of you now, and then your external reality will catch up. So start small, let it be gradual. Often, the biggest and most sustainable changes will come from these small, consistent tweaks and steps. For example, if your next level self is confident, what does she do that you're avoiding right now? What's one small thing that you could do to then improve that? If she trusts herself, what decisions would she stop outsourcing to other people? If she feels safe with money, how does she check her bank account or how does she make investments? And what small things could you do? And how does she feel when she receives a bill and has to make a payment? Every time you choose from that version of you, even in the tiniest of tiny ways, you rewrite your self concept. Your brain starts to build new evidence that supports your upgraded identity. And with enough conscious repetition, that new identity becomes your new normal, and this will be your autopilot. This is where you will be automatic. You'll move through the world on autopilot from this place. Okay, the next part is the step that is most often overlooked. And it's about making your new identity feel emotionally safe in your nervous system. Here's something that most people don't realize. You can want to be seen, you can want to be successful, in love, or abundant. But if those things really don't feel emotionally safe to you, even on a subconscious level, you'll resist them or you'll sabotage them. This is your nervous system really trying to protect you by keeping you in what's familiar, even if this familiar state is uncomfortable. It's not what you want. So, one of the most powerful things that you can do while upgrading your self concept is to create safety around becoming this new version of you. I've been giving you a heap of examples in this episode, so let's continue with that theme. I'm going to give you some more. Let's say if the idea of being more visible is really going to bring up anxiety, instead of forcing you to go live on social media, maybe start by posting something slightly more vulnerable than usual and then check in with how you're feeling about that afterwards. So, really just checking in with your nervous system. How is this sitting with me? Again, it's a small step. Let's keep with the theme of money. Let's say if receiving more money makes you feel guilty or like you don't deserve it, sit with that feeling by kindly challenging this belief. You need to ask yourself, where did this belief come from? And is it actually true for me? Because when I did that, it wasn't true for me. I knew I didn't want it to be true for me. Let's do one about confidence. Let's say if stepping into more confidence feels a little too edgy and out of your comfort zone, maybe you could try doing one small thing a day that builds trust within yourself, like honoring a boundary that you've set, or saying no without over explaining the reason why, or taking action uh, on something that you've been avoiding. As a takeaway, when you stretch yourself in this way, whether it's being more visible online, investing into yourself, setting boundaries, or allowing more ease into your life, I really encourage you to pause and ask yourself, like, what is really coming up for me right now? Is there a sense of fear? Is there a sense of failure? Am I fearing judgment? Do I feel guilty? Do I feel a pressure to be perfect? Where do I feel this in my body? Then you have an opportunity to shift your baseline by doing a few things that may help regulate your nervous system. So you can do things like grounding yourself in your environment, which is really easy to do when you say, 5 things that you can see, 5 things you can hear, 5 things that you can touch. You might also benefit from breathing deeply and really slowly, especially really long exhales. I'm really a big fan of box breathing. You could even try placing your hand on your heart or your stomach and reminding yourself that this situation is safe, that I'm okay, that I don't need to rush myself. You could even try shaking your body, like literally just, when you're at a conference or something and they say, get up and shake, like there's a reason, like literally stand up and shake your arms and your legs and release any tension or built up energy that is being stored in your body. And another really, really powerful one that you could try is reframing the story. So instead of, I'm not ready for this, you could try saying something like, this is new, but I'm learning to hold it. What you're doing here is slowly teaching your system that this new way of being, it's not dangerous. It is safe. It might be unfamiliar, but it is powerful. It's who you are now. And this is what creates really lasting identity change, because it's not just happening in your mind, it's happening in your body too. So the key is, don't just mentally decide to become her. You need to really support your entire system in adjusting to that new reality so that it can be sustainable. We're really not here to try and bulldoze your fear. We're trying to show your body and your brain that it's safe to change. It's safe to expand and receive more and hold a new experience of life. Change doesn't stick when it feels threatening. It sticks when it feels aligned, empowered, and safe. Last but definitely not least, if you want to really shift your self concept, you need to be in environments that reflect your new self concept back to you. You really need to show up and support yourself here. Like, you really need to show up. You can do all the internal work, but if you're constantly around people or environments that reinforce your old identity, it will feel like an uphill battle. So start by being more mindful and intentional around what content you're consuming online, who you follow online. Do you have expanders that you're following that can be helpful? What conversations you're entertaining? Be mindful of the energy that you're surrounding yourself with, and also be really mindful of the environments that you're spending time in. This is why I love tools like journaling and visualization and even private mentoring, because they create a container where your next level self is actually normalized. They're getting airtime, they're not being questioned. If there is one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it's this: you don't have to work harder to change your life. You have to change who you believe you are. Self concept work isn't about fixing yourself. It's about peeling back the layers of conditioning, fear, and self protection and stepping into the version of you that's already been there all along. Because that version of you, the one that feels safe being seen, the one who knows she's worthy of ease, of love, of overflow, she already exists. She's the one who effortlessly manifests the life of her dreams because she's in alignment, because she's operating from her true, authentic self. You just have to choose her. And the more you practice that choice in your thoughts, in your actions, in your energy, the more the world around you will start to reflect her back to you. If you're listening right now and thinking, wow, I know I've been holding on to beliefs or a self image that doesn't reflect who I truly want to be, that's not something to feel bad about. That's your sign that you are absolutely ready. You are ready to step into a more powerful, grounded, and aligned version of you. And you're ready to actually spend the time uncovering the stories and the beliefs you've been holding on to that you don't even likely realize that are running in the background. And if you want support in doing that, because you absolutely do not have to figure it out on your own, you don't have to journey that alone. Like, absolutely not. If you want support, I do have two next steps for you, depending on how they feel for you. So, the first one would be to grab my free private podcast episode. I've mentioned it in previous episodes. It's called Unlocking the Version of You Who Has It All. It's a perfect follow on from this episode and my last few, and it dives deeper into the mindset patterns that keep you stuck and how to actually start shifting into your next level self with clarity and with intention. You can find that link in the show notes below, or you can go to the link in my bio at the Status Aligned Instagram page. The second option would be to dive straight into the Mindset Upgrade Toolkit if you are ready to take this work deeper. And like I mentioned earlier, this is a self-paced, it's a digital resource that gives you the exact tools to identify and rewire your core limiting beliefs, to shift your self concept at like the subconscious level, and to embody the energy of your next level identity. I really love this kit. It includes videos, guided exercises, rewiring tools, and lots of information so you know exactly what to do and where to begin. And it really is designed to help you start showing up as the woman who already lives the life that you want. You can find this at the link in the bio or in the show notes below. Remember, you don't need to hustle your way into your dream life. You just need to become the version of you who's aligned enough to receive it. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode resonated, please share it, send it to someone who needs it, or leave a review. I so appreciate you being on this journey with me. Until next time, keep expanding, keep aligning, keep choosing the version of you who already has it all. And I look forward to you joining me in the next episode of Not So Status Quo.